Hi there everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jennifer Kirk and you're up here in the loft on Weir Yard. And today actually I've got a bit of an exciting project that I want to introduce you to. What I'm actually planning on doing is building a new layout. No, don't worry, we're not going to be ripping up Weir Yard, but actually what I do fancy doing is building an all new exhibition layout. And I've been really taken by some of the new releases coming through in 009. Now we've had quite a few coming through from Pico, with more promised in collaboration with Kato. Really looking forward to those Festiniog locomotives. But we've also had the 262 Manning Wardle from Helgen. But I really need somewhere to run all this stuff. And I got it into my head that actually a nice little project might be to make a minimum space continuous run 009 layout. Now 009 does lend itself to smaller places because it has all the advantages that actually narrow gauge had over standard gauge, in that it could hug contours better, it could go around tighter corners and just generally fit into a rugged landscape with much less need for heavy engineering. So I do have some bits and pieces left lying around, and I've been eyeing up a few of the Bachmann Scenecraft narrow gauge themed items as well. So come with me, and I'm really looking forward to showing you the start of what hopefully will be a long-running project here on the channel, and it's my 009 minimum space, minimum price build. So in association with the channel sponsor Train-O-Matic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories, and I really look forward to showing you how this project develops. Hi there, right, well, we're down here in Building Central, out in the conservatory. It's been a while since we've been here. I think the last build that we did in here was the Hornby Centenary build. And actually that's quite a good link, because what we actually have here is some of the leftover bits and pieces from that. So you'll recognise here one of the baseboards that we cut the upper tiers out. And this is just scrap. It's been hanging around waiting for me to figure out what to do with it. And I've come up with the perfect way of making good use of this, some of the other bits of wood. But also, for this build, I want to go 009. And this cape box really provided the spark of inspiration. It's what came with it was actually a 40th birthday cape. And it was from protecting it in transit through the post. I mean, who posts a cape? But it has ended up with this really quite strong polystyrene box and lid. And looking at these, I think that these would be the ideal terrain-forming bits and pieces to actually build up a mountainous terrain. Now, we've had a few great releases coming through from, in particular, from Pico, but we've also reviewed the Helgen Manning Wardle locomotive, and I really want to give these a good home. So my thoughts were a Festiniog themed build. Whenever we've been to the Festiniog, what really strikes me about it is the really amazing scenery, the very dramatic scenery. So my idea is envisaging a train that's running on almost like a ledge along a really steep hillside, and I want to make it a continuous run. And then I hit upon the idea of, what if the entire layout was scenic, so you could look at it from any side, and that's where this piece of wood comes in. So we're going to have the track running around this. I'm going to raise it up on 4-inch risers from the Woodland Scenics range, and that's going to mean that I can have stuff that is under track level as well as over it. And we've used the Woodland Scenics risers before. They are an absolutely great product. This big polystyrene box, I'm going to figure out a way. I've got a hot wire cutter here. It's quite a primitive one. Quite literally heats up a wire off a couple of C-cell batteries. I'm going to have a go at using this to cut chunks from the polystyrene that we've got here, and that will form a really lightweight but strong interior to what effectively will be a mountain in the middle. Now, so that it doesn't look like the train really is just coming round the mountain as she comes, I'm going to have a tunnel. there's going to be one point on this where the train will go into a tunnel and then out on the other side. And that will kind of be our point where the layout starts and finishes. So it will actually look more like we've got two tunnels and we're modelling that bit of scenery between them, but kind of bending it round, a little bit of sleight of hand. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start work on the bottom baseboard level. As you can see, this is quite floppy. So I've got some 2x1 planed spars. I've already cut a couple of these to the right length to brace along the sides, and hopefully I've got just enough here to fully brace the lower level, and then that will put us at a point where I can move on, work out what I need to get to progress the layout further. But the focus of this video in the main is putting together the basics of the baseboard to get us started. So I'm going to go ahead, cut some wood, screw it together, we'll come back and see how it looks. I'm going to lay out a temporary layout of track. This won't be on the risers because I don't have those yet, but that's going to allow me to check the radius, and I'm going to use that Manning Wardle from Helgen because it is notorious for really not liking tight curves, and that's going to set the approximate way that the track is going to go around this mountain. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done. As you can see, it comes together quite strong quite quickly, and it's still going to be a very light build. So you could store this, say, on top of a wardrobe, anywhere like that. And actually the big circle in the centre, which is by necessity of this being the scrap offcuts from a different build, actually means that you've got good access up the inside. Say if you want to be able to put electronics in, all manner of electronic effects. And actually that's something that we can look at in the future once the layout is built, to maybe embellish it with a few extra features. This is probably the simplest way to build any baseboard, using a ply top and then bracing it with something simple like 2x1 planed battens. And as you can see, it actually makes quite a strong yet light construction, and it's really suitable for those of you maybe not quite so confident at tackling a more adventurous baseboard construction. What I'm doing now is putting in some cross bracing. The reason for this is not so much for the rigidity of this baseboard, but because we've got this massive hole through the middle, I want something for the mounting structure to be able to attach to. It's going to be largely hollow inside, but these just allow a point where some scrap bits of timber can be screwed to it, going vertically, and then the rest of the structure glued and attached to them. So I'm going to just quite simply make almost like a square window. So let's see what's through the square window. Oh no, it's not square, it's a round window. So you can see now what we're trying to get put together. I just need 2 more crossbars and then we're done. And by staggering these, it means that we can get the screws in just fine without compromising any of the strength. So we're all done now. It looks like we've got a badly made circular window from Play School of old, and the reason it's staggered is just so that we can get the screws in at the end. It honestly, underneath, doesn't really matter too much at all. But what we've got here is actually a reasonably strong baseboard level. It's only a small layout, so we don't need massive bracing sections. And we can add a plywood surround at a later date if we decide to. But for me, I'm quite happy with this. So I'm going to let the glue dry, and then I'm going to just play about with a little bit of track, and that's going to reach the point where we can decide just where the track's going to go. Even though this is not the layer that the track will ultimately be laid on, what I want to do is just make sure that we can get the locomotives that I'm planning, the Helgen Manning Wardle, to go round this. So what I'm going to do is lay out a temporary test track, and I'm going to run that locomotive round. When I'm happy with that, I'm going to just pencil mark down, just so I've got a rough idea where things are going to go. There's a little bit more track to come. I'm going to add a passing loop on the finished layout, just for a little bit of extra operational interest, and that's often quite important. Think about little things that will go a long way later in the build. But I'm going to get on now, I'm going to lay this track, and then we're going to come back and see the first train running. It's just a temporary laydown of the track, roughly where the actual loop's going to go. And I'm testing it with this locomotive. Basically, if this locomotive will get round, anything will get round this. And it's right on the limit, actually, of what this can do, but it is getting round. We've even got a point in here as well, just to make sure that it will go around those points as well. But this is the proof of concept. We can make a continuous run 009 layer out of this, and that Helgen locomotive will work on it. So now that I've got it running, I'm going to mark out with pencil, and then we're all ready for when we get those Woodland Scenics risers. But that is the end of part 1 of this project. Now I hope you've enjoyed following this, as we've shown you how to put together some pretty simple baseboards and kind of plan out how you want a layout to develop. But stay tuned, we're going to be having more updates on this project, and next time round we're going to be looking at the start of building that scenery subterrane using the Woodland Scenic Risers. So until next time, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you then. Stay safe and happy modelling. Today's video is sponsored by Train-O-Matic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Michael Churchwood, Anthony Hunt, William Wade, Wayne Johns, Offshore Allen, oorail.co.uk, Tepic, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Peter Bolton, Brian Smith, Brian and Dorothy Mudd, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Trish Bits, Sparky 107107, George Botterini, Andy Finch, Chris Moss, Robert Sears, MD of San Juan Model Company and Grant Line Products, Sam Yates, and Dale Williams. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.